Hello, welcome to the channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and don't forget to write a comment. Enjoy watching.
They said it was for couples only, with the kind of soft emphasis on only that made it sound less like a rule and more like a warning, like those signs that say no shoes, no service, but what they really mean is, you don't look like you belong here. My sister Lena didn't even bother calling. She just texted me the message on a Thursday afternoon, like she was checking off a box she'd almost forgotten. The text read, "Hey, just so you know, Jesse's engagement party is this Saturday. It's for couples only, so we figured you wouldn't be comfortable anyway. No hard feelings. Love you." No hard feelings, she said, like the sentence wasn't dipped in passive-aggressive frosting and served cold. I stared at the screen for a full minute, not even angry at first, just numb, like I'd been expecting the blow and was now waiting for the sting to catch up. The party wasn't some small backyard thing either, it was full-on catered, booked at that hideously expensive winery outside San Luis Obispo, the one with a 4-month waiting list and a menu that came with wine pairings and silent waiters. Jesse, my cousin, had always been the golden one, born smiling, born charming, and apparently born with enough Instagram followers to call herself an influencer without a hint of irony. Her fiancé, Mark or Mike or Matt, something bland like that, was just a place setting in her picture-perfect life. They'd been together maybe 2 months. But there he was, splashed across her social media, shirtless by the pool, slow dancing at sunset, holding her hand while she fake laughed at a joke she probably told herself. I wasn't bitter about love. Not exactly. I'd just been through a breakup that came at me sideways. Aaron, my boyfriend of almost 2 years, left 3 months ago with the words, "You're too much in your head, Maya. I need someone lighter." Lighter. Like I was luggage. Like the heaviness of my thoughts was some kind of tax he didn't want to pay anymore. And just like that, I went from planning vacations to packing boxes, from we to me, and the silence that came after his goodbye felt louder than any argument we never had. I didn't tell anyone in the family about the breakup, mostly because I knew what they'd say. Lena would have rolled her eyes, said something like, "Well, maybe now you'll loosen up a bit," while Jesse would have offered a sad smile and a fake, "You'll find someone," already halfway through picking out matching pajamas for her engagement shoot. What twisted the knife wasn't just that I wasn't invited. It was that others were. I saw them on Jesse's story that night, people I barely recognized, friends of friends, coworkers she never even liked, all holding champagne flutes and posing under fairy lights like they'd wandered into a rom-com. One girl, Stacy, had met her boyfriend just 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. But apparently, 3 weeks and a shared Spotify playlist qualified you for entry into the elite circle, while I, with my career, my stability, my whole damn identity, was somehow still other. I wasn't bitter. I was furious. Lena's text came back to mind every time I scrolled. "We figured you wouldn't be comfortable anyway." Like she knew what I needed better than I did. Like I hadn't spent years learning to sit through every family dinner while they poked at me for being too serious or not fun enough. I'd put up with it all, the little jabs, the still single jokes, the backhanded compliments about how ambitious I was, as if ambition was a scar I should hide under makeup. That night, I sat on my couch in silence, the TV casting a bluish hue across my apartment walls. I'd opened a bottle of wine, not to drown my feelings, but to toast to them. Screw them all, I thought. I sipped slowly, scrolling through stories, watching Jessie twirl in a cream dress that cost more than my rent. People toasted, kissed, laughed into cameras. And there I was alone. Not lonely. Alone. There's a difference. I flipped through channels just to kill time, the kind of passive flicking that meant I wasn't looking for anything, just trying not to feel. That's when the news caught my eye. The ticker at the bottom scrolled like always election nonsense, sports scores, weather warnings, but then, for a flash, my name appeared. It was quick and I almost missed it. The screen glitched, froze, then kicked me back to the main menu. But I saw it. Maya Harper, 34, named youngest CEO in biomedtech industry history. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe another Maya Harper. Maybe a draft press release that got leaked too early. I grabbed the remote, tried to rewind, but the channel was buffering. I sat forward, heart suddenly racing, staring at the screen like it would offer me answers if I just looked hard enough. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Lena. Again. Her text said, "OMG. Just saw the news. So proud of you. We need to talk. Brunch soon." I didn't answer. I just stared at the screen, wine glass in hand, the glow of the TV painting shadows across my walls. All I could think was, they didn't want me at their table when I was just me. But now that the world knew my name, they wanted to pull out a chair. And this time, I wasn't sure I was going to sit. I sat there staring at the frozen TV screen, not even breathing for a few seconds, like if I moved too fast the headline might disappear or morph into something else, something less impossible. Something that made more sense for a woman who had just been uninvited from a family celebration for being alone. The wine glass was still in my hand, the stem slightly slick with sweat, or maybe condensation, or maybe just the heat of the moment building up in my palm. I reached for the remote with my other hand and hit rewind. Even though I knew cable news almost never worked like that, still, I was hoping for a miracle, hoping for confirmation, hoping the words hadn't just been wishful thinking. Some kind of hallucination conjured by a bruised ego and half a bottle of red. But then my phone buzzed again, this time with a notification from LinkedIn, of all places, and there it was, my own face. One I barely recognized because someone had used my 10-year-old professional headshot where I still wore that stiff navy blazer and the nervous, closed-mouth smile that screamed, "Don't screw this up." Underneath the photo, in bold sans-serif font, it read, "Maya Harper appointed CEO of Biomedtech West, youngest in company history." I blinked twice, then clicked into the article, heart pounding like I was back in college opening exam results. It was real. It was official. It was everywhere. The announcement wasn't supposed to go live until next week, and I had planned for it, drafted a post, approved a press release, even scheduled an internal memo for the team, but someone, somewhere, had leaked it early, and now it was out in the wild. The article mentioned my name more times than I'd ever seen in one place, called me a quiet force in biotech innovation, and listed my track record like it was an Olympic resume. Graduate of Stanford, joined the company at 24. Led 3 major research breakthroughs in under a decade, instrumental in the Phoenix trials, now leading the charge into AI-driven immunotherapy. And I'll admit, it felt good, not just good, but vindicating. Like finally stepping into a spotlight that had always been pointed just slightly to the left of me. I leaned back against the couch and did a quick mental calculation just to savor the timeline. I started in the industry at 22, right after grad school, which meant, no, wait, that's not right. 24. I started at 24. And now I was 34, which meant it had been 12 years, or was it 10? I don't know why I thought 12. Maybe it just sounded more dramatic. 12 years sounds like a proper grind, like something people respect. 10 years feels quicker, too quick to be CEO, almost suspicious. But whatever. It was out there now. The story had a life of its own, and I wasn't about to correct a good headline. And then the real flood began, the texts, the emails, the tagged posts. People I hadn't heard from in years were popping up like daisies in spring. College roommates, ex-coworkers, even Aaron's sister messaged me with a breezy, "So proud of you, girl. Knew you'd crush it someday." I stared at that one for a long time, thinking about the last time I saw her, sitting across from me at a brunch table, sipping overpriced lattes while subtly suggesting that maybe Aaron had a point, that maybe I was a little intense, a little too career-focused, a little too headstrong for someone in their 30s who hadn't yet settled into the wife and mom routine. I didn't reply. Then came Lena. 3 in the morning. My phone buzzed on the nightstand where I'd tossed it. "OMG. Just saw the news. So proud of you. We need to catch up." Let's do brunch this week. Just us. Please. That last word hung heavy, please. Like she knew she had to soften it, like maybe she sensed that the power balance had shifted, that maybe this time I was the one deciding who got an invite and who sat out. I left her on read. Not out of spite, not entirely, but because I needed to think. I wasn't used to this. I wasn't used to being the name on the screen, the one in the headline, the face people clicked on and said, "Oh, her? Yeah, I knew her back when." My life had always been defined by what I wasn't, not the prettiest, not the loudest, not the fun one, not the romantic success story. But now I was the youngest CEO in a billion-dollar company. Now I was the story. And yet, even as the congratulations poured in and my inbox turned into a fire hose of attention, I couldn't stop thinking about that damn group chat. Jesse's engagement ring had been its name for weeks, locked in like some kind of family monument, with every photo and plan shoved in our faces like a parade we weren't allowed to skip. But now, as I glanced at my notifications, I saw something strange. The name had changed. Just like that, with no announcement, no ceremony, no vote, the chat had been renamed the Harper Legacy. No more rings, no more Jesse, no more fairy lights and wine tastings and pastel decorations. Now it was about us, or more accurately, it was about me. For a moment, I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or throw my phone across the room. Because that was the thing about power, it doesn't just show up at your door with a bow on it. It sneaks in through the cracks, rearranges the furniture, and suddenly you're the one everyone wants to impress. I stood up, stretched, and walked to the kitchen, my bare feet silent on the tile. I poured the last of the wine and watched it swirl in the glass like blood. The toast I made was quiet, just a whisper to myself. To the legacy they never saw coming. The message came the next day, as if Lena had been pacing her living room waiting for the right number of hours to pass before pretending like everything was fine between us. As if she hadn't excluded me from our own cousin's engagement party less than 48 hours earlier under the insultingly transparent excuse of couples only. This time, it was a long text, probably rewritten a few times, judging by the overly careful tone, and it read something like, "Jesse and I were talking and we really want to celebrate you. You've accomplished something incredible and we'd love to take you to brunch this weekend. Just us girls like old times. Our treat." The words "just us girls" stuck to my ribs like dry toast, pretending that we'd ever been the kind of sisters who wore matching sunglasses and gossiped over mimosas was laughable at best and manipulative at worst. But I didn't say no. What they didn't know was that I wasn't coming to reconnect, and I certainly wasn't showing up for praise or reconciliation. I was coming to test the water they were swimming in, to see how fast they'd flip their tone now that I was the shiny object in the family tree. So I replied with a simple, "Sure, let me know where," and left it at that. We picked a spot downtown, overpriced and full of eucalyptus walls and men with artfully trimmed beards, the kind of place Lena, usually reserved for clout lunches and soft launches of new clients she barely believed in. When I arrived, they were already seated, Jessie wearing a beige jumpsuit that made her look like a minimalist lampshade, Lena in a blazer so white I wanted to ask if she'd brought a Tide pen just in case I spilled something. They stood when I approached, all smiles and wide eyes, like I was some visiting celebrity instead of the same sister they'd politely exiled from their Instagram-ready lives not even a week ago. The moment I sat, Jessie leaned forward, her voice pitched just high enough to sound warm but not sincere, and said, "You look amazing, Maya." Seriously, like CEO amazing. I thanked her, let the compliment hang in the air like a chandelier, then picked up the menu without glancing at it. We ordered, though nobody cared what they ate. This was not a meal for food. This was theater. Lena wasted no time before launching into her curated admiration, saying things like, "You've really grown into yourself, and I mean, you've always been smart, but this is just next level." I smiled and nodded, playing the game. Then Jessie, with the kind of clueless tactlessness that could only come from being adored her whole life, added, "We always knew you were brainy, but we didn't expect you to get rich too. That's, like, rare. I sipped my coffee and said nothing, because anything I said would have made it worse and better at the same time. Lena shifted gears after that, sliding into business talk like she was auditioning for a job she didn't know I already had the power to deny. So, she said casually, "Is your company expanding?" Because I've got a few clients in biotech, and they're always looking to partner with innovative firms. She said innovative like it was a new word she'd just learned, like she'd only now realized the world didn't revolve around branding packages and overpriced slogans. I leaned back, looked at both of them, and smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes, the kind that says I see you. "Actually," I said, stirring my coffee slowly, "I've been thinking of hosting something myself. A little party, maybe next month." Jessie lit up immediately. "Oh my God, yes. What's the theme?" I held her gaze as I replied, "It's going to be for single people only." I took another sip. You know, just as solo achievers. I figured couples already get enough invites. Their smiles faltered just a breath too long, just enough for me to catch it, then quickly returned, as if they were trying to laugh off a joke they didn't quite understand. We chatted more, or rather, they talked, and I let them fill the silence, because silence is where people tell the truth. And the truth was, they didn't care about my success. They cared about how it affected their reflection, how they could be near the spotlight without being the one who lit it. I waited until the check came, which Lena paid, of course, as promised, a gesture meant to signal generosity but delivered with just enough performative flair to imply she was still the one holding the upper hand. Then I reached into my clutch and pulled out the folder I'd brought, small, sleek, almost unremarkable, unless you knew what you were looking at. I laid it gently on the table, right between their two half-empty glasses of orange juice and apathy, and said, "This is something I wanted to share with you too. Just a little opportunity one think you'll appreciate. Consider it a proposal." Jessie looked at it like it might bite her. Lena, on the other hand, reached for it with the precision of someone used to sniffing out leverage. But I didn't let go of the folder just yet. I held it there for a beat, just long enough for tension to start buzzing between us, and added, of course, no pressure. Just think of it as a little thank you for brunch. And then I let go. Because sometimes, letting go is the most powerful thing you can do. The folder lay open between us like a trap, disguised as an opportunity, a sleek little package with velvet language and glossy pages that promised growth and synergy and mutually beneficial innovation, all dressed up in the kind of marketing speak that people like Lena ate for breakfast and people like Jessie didn't understand, but signed anyway. I watched them both carefully as they flipped through it, pretending to read, pretending to understand what they were looking at, even though I could tell by the way Lena's lips pressed into a flat white line and Jessie kept pausing on the pictures that neither of them truly grasped what was in front of them. That was the beauty of it, really. The best deals don't hide the fine print. They print it in bold and count on your ego to skip over it. I had crafted the entire project like a chessboard, each move already considered before they'd even decided to play. It was a side project under my newly acquired authority, technically separate from the company, but closely affiliated, and it focused on digital biotech branding, a hybrid of data-driven marketing, health tech consulting, and AI-mapped consumer trends. Lena had been dancing around something similar for years, some half-baked initiative she'd branded NeuroGlow that never got off the ground, mostly because she was more interested in buzzwords than building blocks. The hook I offered was simple: Maya's prestige, Maya's resources, Maya's real-world infrastructure, but their names attached for legitimacy in the eyes of their followers. They would feel important. They would feel powerful. They would not be. Jessie was the first to speak, because of course she was, and her words dripped with the kind of breezy cluelessness only privilege could breed. "This is so cool, Maya. Like, seriously. I don't totally get it, but I'm in. You've always been, like, 5 steps ahead of the rest of us." She looked at Lena for approval, but Lena didn't nod. She didn't blink. She just stared at the clause that stated, in plain language, that all intellectual property developed under the NeuroGlow name, now a registered trademark owned solely by me, would be the exclusive property of the lead developer. Me. Not them. Lena finally looked up, eyes sharp and unreadable. "You're using my idea," she said flatly, no decoration, no smile, just truth hung in the air like smoke. I smiled gently, the way you smile at someone who's late to their own surprise party. "I'm developing your concept," I said calmly, "the one you floated around in half a dozen failed pitches that never went anywhere. I filed paperwork. I built infrastructure. You had a vision board. I have a patent." Jessie looked between us like she was watching a foreign film without subtitles, and Lena looked like she'd just swallowed a mouthful of sand. There was a pause, long enough for the waitress to come by and refill our waters, oblivious to the quiet war happening over eggs and contracts. Lena finally leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms like armor, and said, "You know this is dirty, right? You're playing with fire. We're family, Maya." The word family snapped something in me, not a break, but a click, like a puzzle piece sliding into place, or a long-forgotten door finally unlocking. I took a breath and answered, not with anger, but with something colder and far more dangerous: clarity. "And family," I said slowly, "doesn't uninvite each other over relationship status. Family doesn't reduce you to your romantic resume or make you prove your worth with a +1. You made your choice, Lena. Now I'm making mine." I saw the flicker of guilt in her face, just a twitch, quickly buried under years of practiced detachment, but it was there. Jessie, still holding the pen, asked, "So wait, we both get equity, right? Like real shares?" I nodded, because technically yes, just not the kind that would give them control. Jessie signed her copy first, without reading another word, and handed it back like she was passing off a receipt from a manicure. Lena stared at hers for a long time, her fingers curled tight around the pen, her eyes scanning the contract again, probably hoping she'd miss something that would give her more leverage, more security, more pride. But there was nothing. It was all as I'd promised. Brutal. Clean. Final. I could see the war in her eyes, pride versus greed, ego versus reality. And I knew which one would win. Eventually, slowly, she signed. Her name, carefully written, a little shaky at the end, like her hand didn't want to cooperate. She placed the pen down and looked at me, her face as hard as glass, ready to shatter. I smiled, stood, and stepped around the table to hug them both, pressing my arms gently around their stiff shoulders. Jessie hugged back with awkward enthusiasm, and Lena stayed still as stone. I leaned in, my voice soft in her ear, and said, "Don't worry, I'll take good care of you. Just don't ask me to babysit your karma." I stepped back, picked up the signed papers, and tucked them neatly into my clutch, where they joined the growing pile of things I never expected to own, but somehow now did. As I walked out of the restaurant into the bright, unflattering daylight, I didn't feel triumphant. Not exactly. I felt measured. Controlled. Like I had finally pulled even on a scoreboard they'd been keeping in secret since we were kids, a tally I'd never been allowed to see. But now? Now I was the one holding the pen. The campaign launched on a Monday morning, slick and calculated and entirely on brand. Every pixel curated to strike that perfect balance between inspiration and envy. The kind of promotional rollout that makes people pause mid-scroll and wonder how they missed the memo on something big. The image that anchored the first wave was a full-bleed photo of Jessie in her engagement dress, smiling with that open-mouthed glow that looked like joy but had always, to me, felt more like performance. The headline was sharp, polished, aspirational. From celebration to innovation, how moments of joy spark real change. The subtext did the real work, tying the concept of Jessie's so-called modern fairy tale to a new wave of personal health branding powered by AI-driven biotech, wellness integration, and something my team had dubbed narrative diagnostics, which sounded futuristic enough to keep journalists and influencers guessing. Of course, Jessie had no idea she was going to be the campaign's emotional hook, the face of a movement that, In truth, she didn't understand and wouldn't have agreed to if I'd told her outright. But she'd signed the partnership agreement, and buried within clause 14, the one she skimmed while sipping her lavender spritzer, was a neat little phrase granting me full and independent control over associated narrative development and visual collateral. In other words, I owned her image in the context of this campaign, and what I didn't own, I licensed with a smile and a handshake she'd been too eager to get to Instagram to examine closely. Lena's name appeared too, though not in lights, more like in footnotes. Her so-called brand consulting firm was listed as a partner, a strategic contributor to the storytelling architecture, which was a fancy way of saying I let her toss in a few buzzwords to feel important. But what she also missed, tucked inside the very last appendix, was my right to approve or reject any and all external messaging connected to the launch. I had final veto power over their social media, their press releases, even their reactions. And when I saw the posts Lena drafted, full of smug congratulations to herself for mentoring this exciting brand journey, I shut it all down with one click and a curt email from legal. By Wednesday, both Jessie and Lena were frantically texting and emailing, wondering why their scheduled posts hadn't gone live, why their tags had been removed, and why, for all intents and purposes, they had vanished from the story they thought they were co-authoring. I didn't answer, not immediately. I wanted to watch it unfold from the sidelines, wanted to see what it looked like when people realized too late that the thing they rushed to attach themselves to was already moving with or without them. I sat on my couch, same wine glass, same soft hum of the TV in the background, and watched as the analytics poured in. Engagement was spiking, interest from media outlets growing by the hour, and early investor conversations were starting before lunch. I could have gone further. I could have buried them completely. I had drafts of statements ready to go, press blurbs that removed their names entirely, a second wave of content that shifted focus to my solo leadership. All it would have taken was one signature, one email, one decision. But I didn't pull the trigger. Maybe it was maturity or restraint or just plain boredom, but I sat in that quiet moment and chose silence instead of fire. Not because they deserved mercy, but because I deserved peace. And the truth is, revenge tastes sweeter when you're the only one who knows it's being served. The phone rang just as I was settling into the stillness, a number I hadn't seen pop up in months, but recognized immediately, like a ghost knocking on your door with the same smile they used when they walked out of your life. Aaron. I stared at the screen for a moment before answering, unsure whether I wanted to hear his voice or hang up and pretend it never happened. But curiosity always had a grip on me, so I picked up. His voice was soft, tentative, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to speak to me anymore. "Hey, Maya," he said. "I saw the campaign. You're incredible. I mean, I always knew you were brilliant, but this is something else. I made a mistake." There it was, the apology, the regret, the subtle reach for a lifeline he'd once so casually dropped. I didn't answer right away. I just listened to the static hum behind his voice, the way it filled the space like all the unsaid things between us. Then I hung up. No explanation. No goodbye. Just the sound of a line going dead, the kind of finality I'd never given myself permission to deliver until now. Later that night, I poured another drink, same brand, same bottle, because some rituals are worth repeating. I stood by the window, the city stretching out below me in glittering silence, and whispered the truth out loud, not to anyone in particular, but to the version of myself who needed to hear it most. Turns out, sometimes the best revenge isn't burning the bridge. It's buying the land the bridge sits on and putting up a toll booth. My phone buzzed again, this time from a different number, a board member from Biomed Tech calling with a question I didn't expect. They'd been reviewing the early success metrics, looking at Lena's contributions in the datasets and public response, and they were wondering if I'd consider giving her a more permanent role. A real stake. A formal title. They said it might be good optics, show unity, balance the sharp edge of my solo narrative with a bit of soft sisterly teamwork. I said I'd think about it. After the call ended, I stood there for a long time, just watching the city move, alive and oblivious. Then I pulled up Lena's name on my phone, the little contact bubble hovering near the top of the screen. My thumb hovered over the delete contact option. Not pressed. Not yet. Sometimes power isn't about what you do. It's about what you hold back. And sometimes the scariest thing for people like Lena is wondering if you're done with them or just getting started.